It is a troubling phenomenon taking place in the Middle East. Children being recruited to be suicide bombers, all for the sake of jihad. It is a growing reality that involves thousands. A new documentary called The Making of a Martyr gives us an inside look into the lives of these child suicide bombers.
Hussam Abdu's shocking story made headlines around the world. Most of the world media and human rights organizations reacted with outrage. The recruitment of a child suicide bomber was both horrifying and morally reprehensible. Palestinian and Arab media were also outraged, but for a different reason. They labeled Hussam's story a cynical Israeli media stunt designed to vilify the Palestinians and justify the killing of more of their children. According to news reports, Hussam said he had been promised 72 virgins in paradise if he successfully completed his mission. It was also reported that his recruiters gave him $20 American. The Second Intifada set in motion a series of violent confrontations, inflicting terrible tragedy on both sides. Israeli cities and towns were rocked by deadly bombings. Innocent civilians, including entire families, were murdered by indiscriminate, high-powered blasts designed to inflict maximum carnage. More disturbing was the involvement of young children in this movement. The martyr was revered as the ultimate symbol of strength, stamped with the seal of religious approval. Historically, a martyr is someone willing to die for his or her religious faith. Here, it had taken on more controversial implications. According to the Palestinian Human Rights Monitoring Group, there have been 28 suicide attacks carried out by children age 18 or younger since September of 2000.
I had the opportunity to sit down with the director of this film, Brooke Goldstein, to talk more about this. This is what's happening, though. I mean, these kids are indoctrinated from a very young age, and people that would never strap bombs on themselves for very low amounts of income, and for a promise that their sins will be forgiven, their family sins will be forgiven. For the men, it's 72 virgins as a reward waiting for them in heaven. They indoctrinate them into believing that paradise awaits them, but the people that are forcing them or indoctrinating or hypnotizing them into doing this, they never do it themselves. Paradise is not there in their future.
It's completely hypocritical and it's murderous. And, you know, children are not doing this for political purposes. Like you said, they are doing this completely as a result of a very shrewd brainwashing and recruitment strategy that is being propagated by the PA.
Sure. Now, when you were interviewing this first woman and her family, because she was the first successful female suicide bomber, and they got shrines all over the house, you also ran into her nieces. How old were they?
They were between the ages of 10 and 14.
And they told you they want to be martyrs? Every girl wants to be a martyr.
Just like all of the children, and we interviewed about 20 or 30 children in the West Bank, as well as children imprisoned in Israeli prisons for armed attacks. We asked them, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you aspire to be? And 9 out of 10, they told us they wanted to become shaheeds or martyrs, suicide bombers. And
their family supports this. In the case of the family of this first female suicide bomber, they encourage the nieces. They support it. They think that they'd be heroes. We'll have pictures of you here.
Right. They do not speak out against the use of their own children. When I interviewed the leader of the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigade, Zachariah Zubaydi, he told me very clearly, if you stop me, if you go and you speak out against what I'm doing, you will be dealt with accordingly.
And that's the guy that puts that now they have the ability to detonate those bombs if they don't.
The Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades, Hamas, all of those terrorist groups are using the same tactics and recruiting children, driving them to checkpoints, instructing them to blow themselves up. Sometimes they're using backpacks filled with explosives, and they're not even telling the children of their content.
Let's talk about the indoctrination process, because this is starting at a very young age.
From infancy, children are being bombarded by their schools. It's in their school textbooks, by their teachers, their religious clerics, and by their media at large.
Even cartoons.
Even cartoons aimed directly at preschool children, which, by the way, are not being produced in the West Bank. They are being produced in Iran, in Saudi Arabia, and Syria, who are in turn showing the same media to their children.
This is not just the madrasas, though, or...
This is a systemic problem. It exists in all aspects of the Palestinian culture.
And one has to raise the question, why is there so much silence on this issue? Where's the international outrage? Where's the United Nations? You know, why aren't they going after the countries that fund this type of insanity and continue to foment this type of martyrdom madness?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. Why aren't we hearing more people speaking out against the murder of Palestinian children by their own government? I mean, I have to think this is an evidence of bias. Their bias against reporting negatively on the Palestinian community is so great that even those who claim to be the protectors of these children will not speak out against the murder of these children by their own government.
One of the things that impressed me as I was reading about you is the people that would be so willing to admit that they recruit even children for suicide bombing. I mean, they're almost proud of it. Is it because they actually believe, too, that they're sending these kids to paradise, or do they...
They have no moral qualms with what they're doing because they've also been taught that this is okay. And this is not a political war. This is a religious war. And people are justifying this with religious notions. And this cannot be seen in a vacuum. This is part of the greater war on terror, where people think it's justifiable to kill for the sake of jihad.